Okay. Good morning. I'd like to call the regular board meeting of Tuolumne Utilities District for January 23rd, 2024 to order. Director Boatwright, would you like to lead us in the pledge, please?
Yes. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, public forum. We'd like to welcome the members of the public who have taken the time to attend this meeting and provide comments on matters related to district business. Any member of the public may address the board relating to any matter within the board's jurisdiction. This need not be related to any item on the agenda. However, the board cannot act on an item unless it was noticed on the agenda. Persons speaking during the public comment will be limited to 5 minutes, or depending on the number of persons wishing to speak, it may be reduced to allow all members of the public the opportunity to address the board. Is there anybody in attendance here today that would like to address the board? Seeing none, how about on YouTube there, Corey?
Not that's speaking at the moment.
Okay, thank you. All right, Melissa, you want to take over?
Okay, consent calendar. Item number 1, minutes of the regular board meeting of January 9th, 2024, and special board meeting of January 17th, 2024. Item number 2, resolution authorizing signing and endorsing checks and other instruments.
Okay, is there any comment on the consent calendar? Director Ringen.
Just a quick question. I don't, as many years as I've been on the board, I don't ever remember us going through this resolution authorizing signing, endorsing checks and other instruments when Sheffield came on board. I understand the importance of this and so on, but why is that not just part of the hiring process?
It's just required. It's a required thing that this board must do, authorize the signatures.
Is that right?
Yeah.
So it's
You
a
probably
finance.
did it in 2010 or 11 when Steve became, when you brought Steve on board. You probably
It
did.
was 2012 when he came on.
10. Well, you're right.
Last
As a
time.
finance director. Okay, yeah, you started in 2010.
Yeah.
And just to chime in, banks, they like to see official documentation
Oh,
of who the signer should be. So
okay.
the bank.
I mean, I'm not against it. I think it's great. I don't remember having ever done it before. So anyway, thank you.
Okay, any other comments on the consent calendar? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
We accept the minutes.
I'll
Okay.
second it.
All right, it's been moved and seconded to approve the consent calendar. Any further comment? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0. Melissa?
Okay, regular business. Item number 3, presentation on collaborative delivery construction.
Okay, real quick, while Gadiel's getting set up here, we have a PowerPoint presentation for you. Is my mic on? Oh, okay. I just, to preface this real briefly, so, I was listening to a podcast the other day. I'll be very brief. And I shared it with some of the folks here in the engineering department, also with Dawn. And it was essentially, a lot of sectors of our economy have improved in efficiency and productivity over the last few decades. Like pretty much almost all sectors of the economy, with the construction sector being the exception. Things tend to take longer and cost more to build. And we've seen this, we felt this here at the district. We have implemented ways to try to mitigate that by having our own construction crews, our own design, in-house design. And we've done fairly well, but when it comes to large projects, we just don't have the capacity to design or the expertise really to design and construct those. And so we have been looking very hard at design build for a better part of a year, year and a half now. Gadiel's attended a design build conference. We've visited sites where they've, utilized design build, spoken with professionals, and continue to educate ourselves. So we would really like to look at this alternative delivery, collaborative delivery method that Gadiel will present for Sierra Pines. We believe it will save, and Gadiel will be able to kind of explain what we've learned, significant time and money. And so he's got a PowerPoint here to share with you on that. And we just hope that the board has an open mind on how this could be applied to large projects. Most of our projects wouldn't fit this mold, but certainly Sierra Pines.
Hi, I'm Gadiel DiMattei, Associate Engineer here with the district. For you again. So yeah, like Eric said, we have a little presentation for you about collaborative delivery construction methods. It's also known as design build. Am I correct that you guys have all heard about this before? Yeah. Okay, good. So this isn't new, so bear with me. Some of this is going to be repeating information that you already know. And hopefully it's a good presentation on the way we normally do things with conventional bidding methods and some advantages and disadvantages of using the new ones, using the ones that are newly available to us, I should say. So my goal here is to present alternative project delivery methods for the use in Sierra Pines. I'm going to go through the conventional methods and look at the new ones. Now, you guys are construction managers. A few of you are construction management managers and familiar with construction in your own right. So this is just one way to break down a typical construction project. There are other ways to look at it. 4 basic phases: planning, environmental, design, and construction. And the main thing to point out about this slide is that design and construction are not overlapping. Finish design, then you go to construction, okay? So again, you guys are familiar with this. Typical public agency project, we complete planning, complete the environmental. It's noteworthy to say that both of those are completed for the Sierra Pines project. And then you need to complete your design and your estimate. Plan specifications and estimate is the term I like to use. That's phase has started for Sierra Pines, but it's nowhere near finished. Okay. Then you hit bid day. Bid day in this method is the very first time that a contractor is allowed to put input into this design. And they attach a number to that design. Okay, something that's really significant in that method. Okay, the lowest bidder is the one that wins the bid. And then you go to construction. And this is what we call design, bid, build. You design it, you bid it, you build it. DBB. Okay, we're familiar with it, and it has some pros and cons. Okay, it's conventional. We're all familiar with it. We've used it before. We used it to build a wastewater treatment plant. Clear division of labor. Mr. Engineer, you're in charge of the design. Mr. Contractor, you're in charge of construction. Awarding to the lowest bidder drives competition. Okay. I mean, after all, the best price is the lowest bidder, right?
Not always.
Not. Oh, we're getting to that. Clear definition of project scope at award. All right. And a known cost at award. Notice the known cost is in quotes. There's some cons to this method as well. Bid day surprise. You guys know what bid day surprise is? I think you've all have seen it before, where the bids that come back from the contractor is 40, 50% higher than the engineer's estimate. Okay, going back to when you develop your plan specifications and your estimate, for Sierra Pines, that portion is going to cost millions of dollars. And we're going to pay a lot of money to experts to give us their opinion of the probable cost. And then bids come in. It may or may not look anything like that estimate that we paid a lot of money for, right? We all hate bid day surprise.
Director Balin has a question for you, Gadiel.
Yes.
Yeah, this is great. It's a lot. Can you slow down just a little?
You bet.
Because I know you want it to go a certain way, okay? But I have a totally different experience than this, starting from slide 1. So I'm trying to work on how how I have done it as a public agency versus where you're going here. So can you go back to the previous slide,
Yes.
please? Okay, so if I understand this, you don't have any environmental input in your planning stage at all. This is actually a linear flow so that you really don't do, your environmental doesn't inform your planning? Is that what
Oh,
you're
I
saying
didn't
here?
mean to express that at all. As a matter of fact, let's go back to this slide. So planning and environmental are overlapping, environmental and design are overlapping. And this is just graphical, right? I mean, we can make design overlap with planning as
Mhm.
well. And I didn't mean to indicate that our design doesn't take into account our
Mhm.
planning or environmental.
I think the reason I'm going back to this is because in that team environment, all you guys are already cruising for those red flags that are going to drive up costs.
Mhm.
Where, so that it wouldn't be a surprise in some cases, because you guys are also, okay, wow, this is rocky ground here. Oh, okay, so that's just, so because we all have experience, maybe slow down a little bit so that we can synthesize our experiences with where you're going. If that's my request, okay, just slow it down a little bit here, so that I can synthesize a little better, okay?
No problem, no
Thank
problem
you.
at all.
Okay,
Yeah, as a matter of fact, once I'm done giving my list of pros and cons, I'd very much like to hear from you guys of what the pros and cons of design bid build is as well. I was gonna pause for that.
yeah, because this informs how you develop a contract to bid on.
Absolutely.
Okay, and so and I will have input on contract development.
Okay,
Okay.
great. Anyone else, questions or comments so far? Okay. So going back to where we were, pros and cons of design bid build. A lack of contractor input into design. If you have a contractor that has certain capabilities, certain equipment, certain experience, I would love to hear from them the best way to build a project. Typically, they're not allowed to give input into the design because that will disqualify them from bidding in this method. Again, estimate with no method. The engineer produces their opinion of probable cost, but he cannot dictate how the contractor builds it. Well, there's more than one way to build it. One of them, some of them are cheaper, some contractors are better at it than others. Yeah, David Boatwright?
Now, a lack of contractor input into design under this format,
Under the design bid build conventional format is what we're still talking about.
okay, how about our current format as far as we go through planning, environmental, and then a certain point of design? Are we allowed to accept contractor input into our current?
No, we're not. Well, we could pay a contractor or ask a contractor for their advice, their opinion and things like that. But there's a certain point where the contractor becomes too involved with the design that gives them an unfair advantage over the other bidders and they'll be disqualified from bidding on the project. That's the current design bid build format that we normally use. And it's the one that we used for regional as well.
All right, thank you.
And that's contract law. I don't know if Jesse's online, but yeah, you will disqualify yourself if you're involved with the design as a contractor.
He doesn't want to do.
Okay. Estimate no method. Another con to this is that a contractor during bidding, sometimes if the contractor maybe is dishonest or less than reputable, maybe they're just looking for the weaknesses of your specifications so that they can exploit them during construction and hit you up for change orders, driving up costs. I'm not saying it happens every time, but it does happen. And that fosters a potentially adverse culture during construction, where it's us against the contractor the whole time, and we're trying to protect our money and they're trying to get our money. Okay? That's design bid build. It's got pros and cons. And if you think of more pros, cons, the likes, dislikes of this method, it's a great theory that the lowest bidder is the best price. easily justifiable with public money, but it's not necessarily the best way to build.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems like I have asked and others have asked this question before. When we have a bid and we're looking at the bids, that it is not about bottom line. It is about the references. It is about coming in on time and in budget. It's about the firm's reputation of not having exorbitant change orders. I thought all of that drove our decision maybe not to take the lowest bidder, that we didn't have to take the lowest bidder. Am I wrong?
No, I don't think you're wrong, especially with us as a public water agency. If we were the county of Tuolumne, that's different. They have to take the lowest bidder. We have a little bit more latitude, and Jesse or Eric could chime in on that. However, it's best practice to award to the lowest bidder unless you have a very good reason not to award to them. I assume Jesse would agree with that statement at the very least, and we could get into the weeds on that more by asking Jesse about this and what the technical rules are if you'd like. But generally speaking, lowest bidder gets the award.
Yeah, so why is that best management practices? I mean,
I'm not saying it is.
Oh,
I'm
you
just
just
saying that
did.
that's
You
normal.
just did.
No, that's not what he said. He said that's what we do. So Jesse, please chime in. I'll try to
Yeah, I'm
square this up, but the way our current procurement policies are and our contract policies are, they prohibit us from giving us the greatest latitude possible to not accept the lowest bidder. So 2 weeks ago, when we last discussed this, or maybe it was a closed session last week, so I gotta watch what I say. But we're gonna work on those. We're gonna work with Jesse and an expert to amend our procurement policy and our contract policy to give us the greatest latitude possible. But today, the way they read today, they don't give us the greatest latitude possible.
I would like to see that policy come before this board
Oh, it
this
certainly
year.
will. It certainly will.
Because I was under the impression that we had latitude, all things considered, so that we didn't get ourselves in a bind. Okay,
Gotcha.
okay.
It's coming
thanks.
before the board soon.
Good.
Director Ringen.
So, I follow along with everything you've put before us up to now. Haven't been in construction my whole life. I've been faced with this contract thing time and time again. And I really agreed with what Director Balin was saying. Well, what about if a contractor is selected? I've seen this happen numerous times, where a contractor selected, he had the lowest bid. Let's just say that's how he got selected. But as he goes through the process, through the construction process, because of his experience and everything else, he deviates from the methods or whatever that were originally put out by the engineers and everybody else. What happens there? Because a lot of times that contractor has a better way to do it, quicker and like I said, better, quicker, and many times even less expensive. What's the situation there?
Yeah, so the current way we do things do allow for the contractor to come forward and say, hey, I have a better way to build this. It'll save money. Let's execute a contract change order to change X, Y, Z. Sometimes that includes going back to your design engineer and asking them, is this okay? Are they changing the structure too much? Is this unsafe? And things like that. So there's latitude to make changes like that after construction. It can get messy though, because you change one thing, a lot of other things change. And really the best thing to do is to work all that out during design.
Okay, thank you.
But I guess if you don't have that contractor working with you, you can't work it out in design.
That's right.
So,
And you'll see where I'm going with this.
yeah, right, exactly. Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I got a question.
Sure.
The potentially adversarial culture, is based on change orders coming from the contractor?
It can.
Isn't that, doesn't that belong basically under the pros of this approach? Because there are no change orders. The contractor and design are within the same company. or the
Again, we're
same
talking
bid
about
package.
design, bid, build, and we're gonna talk about design, build here in a moment. Design, bid, build is the way we currently do things. The way a normal contract would roll out for TUD, the way we're building regional. Design, bid, build is what we're talking about here. The next thing we're gonna be talking about is the collaborative method, design, build, where there would be less change orders because the contractor comes on earlier. Does that make sense?
Okay.
Okay, well, I just. I got that kind of crisscrossed.
Yeah, sorry about that.
a
Trying to be
little bit
clear.
How much of the, well, hey, I'll let you go forward, since we're not in that section, you're basically describing our current method.
Describing the current method so far, talking about the pros and cons of it. It's a system that's worked for years, but there are disadvantages.
My question belongs in the other part of it.
Great. Can't wait to hear it. Getting into alternative design build methods. So we were talking about design bid build. Now we're going to start talking about design build. And these terms, they're just terms. And we'll talk about the people who made up these terms and who defined them in a moment here. But they're kind of new. I had a hard time with all the acronyms as well, things like that. So this is the Sierra picture of Sierra Pines site. And I'm really excited about Sierra Pines. Staff is really excited about Sierra Pines because we're ushering in a new TUD era on our wastewater side with our new plant. We're going to usher in a new era with the water side with this new plant. TUD is completely transformed in the past since I've been working here in the short time. And it's going to continue to transform. We're going to really be looking at something new. So we're excited about this project and we're excited about exploring these new methods of building it. And I call them new methods. They're not actually new. They've been around for a long time. Public agencies have been using them for quite a few decades now. And of course, the private industry has been using this design build method almost without even knowing it. So just wanted to point that out. So to me, to think of design build, it's just like a normal person building their house. Have you guys built houses before? Or any kind of construction project where you get yourself an engineer and a plan set and then you hire a contractor to build it, all right? Design build is just probably the way you built your house. The plan set that you get, you go down to the county, you get yourself approved plan set, and it shows a lot of things on it. It shows where the building's going, it shows how many rooms are going to be, what's the square footage. There's a lot of things that those plans don't show and that they don't need to show yet. What color is the house going to be? I haven't, just a little background for me. I used to work in the construction industry. I was partners with my dad building houses in Calaveras and Tuolumne County for about a decade before I became an engineer. And we knew dang well that when we got an approved plan set, there were still tons of things that the owner had to decide. What kind of doorknobs do you want? What type of roof do you want? Now you have to show an electrical plan to get an approved plan set, but you don't have to show everything. Fixtures, where the light switches are, how many switches, things like that. A million decisions still need to be made, but construction can still begin. We can pour a foundation without knowing what color the house is going to be. If you were to try to get the low bidder and give one plan set to 3 different contractors and get prices and hire the lowest bidder, you would have to make every single one of those decisions before you started building. But that's not normal for a person building their house. Their contractor comes with them and helps them and guides them through the rest of the design process. And that system can work and does work if you hire somebody who's qualified and trustworthy. If you do that, the contractor can provide input into the design and be part of that team walking through it with you. So just a quick story about a time when this happened to me on our job site. Foundation was poured, we're starting to frame, and it was time to order the doors. Went to the owner. Okay, this is the doors you picked. We're gonna place the order, just confirming. They go, well, you know, these are really nice doors, but they're hollow core doors. Let's make them solid core. Okay, sure. First thing we did was call our door supplier and got a price for them. We were able to give that feedback to them. just a side note, the price more than doubled. Okay, we went back to the owner and said, here's the new price. Doesn't matter to us which one you use, the lead time is the same. The installation labor is the same. Let us know which ones you want. They ended up going with hollow core doors. Okay. If you ask an engineer how much a door cost, maybe he calls a door shop and asks them, but he doesn't get the pricings that we could get. He doesn't know the lead time like we know them. The contractor can help with all of these decisions and lead and guide with real-time feedback with the cost estimate. All right. That's why I say this isn't really new. Most of you are already familiar with these concepts. We just want to take these concepts and apply them to a public agency job on a water treatment plant. Okay, back to the conventional delivery method. Here's our timeline with the design and the construction are not overlapping. Here's a possible timeline for a design build method, the collaborative method. We can overlap design and construction and translate that into time savings. Okay. So a little bit about Senate Bill 991. It was passed last year, signed into law by the governor. What that bill did was empower local agencies like us to use collaborative delivery methods, design build, for major projects. Your board voted to support this bill back in August. So it's not, you guys have seen that before. Since its passing, staff started learning. We went to conferences to meet experts, went to trainings to gain knowledge, research to gather resources, and we started doing outreach to promote interest in our project. And that outreach, I think, is the most valuable thing that we did. Through all of our research, we got hooked up with a couple of different organizations. The DBIA is the Design Build Institute of America. They're the ones who kind of put labels on these terms. What's a design build? What's a progressive design build? What's design bid build? Let's define all these terms. And then there's the Water Collaborative Delivery Association. They're more focused on wastewater and water infrastructure specifically. These two organizations provide education, develop standards, manuals, and they provide networking opportunities to people who are pursuing collaborative design build methods, okay? I had the pleasure of going up to Seattle, rubbing shoulders with some of these people. In Seattle, they had an owners forum. Only project owners were allowed in this room to talk to each other. No salespeople, no contractors, no people pushing their agendas. And I was able to meet people like Marina Chavez Vasquez from San Jose. She's in charge of billions of dollars worth of design build projects in San Jose. I was able to meet people like Ashley Stanley from the city of Paradise. She's in charge of a multi-million-dollar project that they have going up in Paradise, rebuilding their sewer collection to rebuild the city, basically. We also got hooked up with the Stanislaus Regional Water Authority, and we were able to tour their plant that is under construction right now. They have a plant that will serve the city of Turlock and Ceres, 15 MGD plant, $230 million project. The contractor is Overa and the designer is Jacobs, and they used design build method for this construction project. They went from design to finish in less than 5 years. This is their timeline that they publish on their website. And we had the pleasure of touring this facility and talking with Jacobs and Overa as well. And our main purpose of meeting these people is to find out the pitfalls, the advantages, what to watch out for, their hard-learned lessons, so that we can apply it to our experience going forward. Here's some pictures of that facility being built, major project. On the left there is a huge water valve for their raw water intake, and on the right there is a underground storage tank that was built. They were able to start construction on that storage tank before the design was completely finished because of this format they used. So moving on, and I'm actually almost done here. I wanted to show you some graphics that the Design Build Institute provides for us. Going back to design, bid, build now, trying to keep these things really clear. This is the old method of doing things. We have our owner. The little puzzle piece shape represents a contract agreement. You have a contract with the designer, you have a contract with the contractor, and this right here, you can't see my pointer. There's no agreement between the designer and the contractor. Okay. They kind of have to play nice together, but not really because they don't have a contract together. That's what this graphic represents. The method that we're interested in to use for Sierra Pines is called progressive design build. And it looks like this. We have our owner. We have an agreement with one team, the designer and builder. They have to team up. We can put all kinds of requirements on what that team looks like, including that they have to have worked together before on a design build project. All right, we have a contract with them. The little dashed line there represents some flexibility and some options. We can finish design under one contract and then execute a change order, a major change order, before we start construction to make sure that we're all still getting along, we're all still in agreement. We like the way this is going, and we're going to execute an agreement to go ahead and proceed with construction. That has flexibility there. Do we want it to be a lump sum? We'll give you one price. You give us one price, we'll pay you that. You give us the plan that works the way we want it to. You can do an open book method where throughout construction, the books are open. We can negotiate, we can divvy up risk, we can divvy up profits the way we see best throughout the whole process. So this project, this type of contract, like Director Balin was saying, can be a lot of different flavors and a lot of different ways to do it. Now, we fully acknowledge that this would be our first time. So up here we have the owner advisor that's kind of puzzle pieced into the owner. We very much think that we need to hire an expert to come with us and guide us through this process. Okay. Then of course, there's the dotted line there that represents an embedded relationship between the design build team and the owner advisor. The owner advisor is more like on our team. And what's most important is that you kind of lose the us versus them mentality. There's not going to be any arguments between the designer and the contractor because they're one entity. There shouldn't be any arguments between the owner and the rest of the team because we're one collaborative team. That's the main thing that we've learned, is that when everybody gets together and collaborates, that's the best outcome for this type of project and arguably any type of project. So,
Question,
yes.
going back to the previous slide. Could you elaborate a little bit more about the advisor role?
Yeah. So there's a lot to be done in order to hire a design build team. You have to really lay out what you want up front. Performance standards, things like that. Before you sign a contract with a design build team, the design build team needs to know a certain amount of information in order to give you realistic pricing before you enter your contract, right? We need to hire an owner advisor to help us navigate that, all right? People with experience in the water space, people experience with construction, people experience with this type of contract, because writing the contract is actually a big step. Part of that advisor would be a legal team and an extension of our in-house legal team, things like that. Any other questions about that?
Oh, just a clarification. Does CSDA offer any specific help with that?
CSDA?
Yes.
What's that?
California Special Districts Association, not that we're aware of, but the other agencies or organizations that Gadiel presented, DBIA, Design Build Institute of America, has templates, contract templates, and the Water Collaborative Delivery Association does as well. So we've already looked at those. There's a couple other contract models out there, but the advisor really would hone in very focused on how to sort of allocate risk and help us make sure that our contract is the performance standard that Gadiel referenced. The contractor the design build team has a performance standard that they have to meet at the end of the job. So how that is written has a big dollar impact on the contract. There's a lot of little details like that.
Yeah, I would just suggest maybe checking out what the California Special Districts Association has. They may have some resources there that we could tap into.
Okay. I got a question. What protects the district on cost, on getting costs out of whack? You know, I mean, I I understand the design, the previous, the way that we're doing it now is for the cheapest price, but how are we protected against, not spending too much money on this?
Yeah. I think the main thing that protects us against cost overrun and things like that is the real-time feedback from your design build team during the design process and during that decision-making process. Things like, what kind of doors do you want? Well, that depends on how much they cost. Let's pick the door that meets our budget. It'd be nice to have solid core doors, but
Yeah, I get that part of it, but if you've got a contractor that's just more expensive than someone else, is there any kind of oversight on that factor or not? Or we have to just do our due diligence up front and figure that out in the beginning?
you have to do your due diligence up front for sure. One of the next slide, we're going to go over some pros and cons. One of the cons is you really have to vet these people before you hire. It's not a low bid method of hiring. It's a qualifications based. Sometimes that means that you're going to be paying more, right? However, there's a negotiation phase before you make the hiring. And if you can't work out a price, you can go to the next most qualified person as well. So there's some things built in there. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. And I'll wait for more of your presentation, but Director Reagan's got a question.
Okay, I'm with you so far right up to here. And I can see where this design build situation could be very advantageous, but what concerns me is pretty much what Director Kearns was talking about is staff engineers know what the project needs to do. So they come up with the baseline, and I hate to even say baseline, but they come up with the overall needs for the project. Let's call it that. So then I guess the part that's concerning me is how do you find the proper, adequate, not only advisor, but also using whatever information you get from that advisor who, you know, up to this point, we haven't had anybody like that. Where are we going to go to get that sort of information and background on somebody like that? What are we looking for? And then we're going to be relying on that advisor in order to come up with a designer and builder. And it just seems to me like there's a lot of traps, a lot of open holes that you could step in and, you know, get yourself in trouble. Like I said, I see the advantages, and I think that it would be great as long as we had some sort of experience in this, as well as some way of knowing for sure who these people are that we would be hiring. I mean, the builder takes on a really important role on this in this method. And that builder better know what in the heck he's doing or she's doing, because otherwise the design is not going to come out the way we need it to come out. And like in Sierra Pines, we get one chance. We get it right on the first deal, or we're in deep doo-doo. And it's so expensive that I don't know, that would be the only thing that I would have against this. I saw what happened down at Regional doing it the old method, and we got one surprise right after the other, starting out with what was originally estimated for the cost to do it, and then having it damn near double. And those sort of things as a board member really concerns me because I'm trying to husband the ratepayers' money and not that staff isn't also, but I'm just saying that that's why I'm here, is to try and make sure that we're not spending money that we shouldn't be, ratepayers' money that we shouldn't be, and that we end up with a finished product that's gonna serve the utility for years and years into the future. So anyway, that's my concerns on this. I guess I'm a little jaded because I've dealt with so many various contractors and people like that throughout the year. And it always, if you don't really follow through and do your homework and really get a lot of background information, which is time consuming, money consuming. I mean, time's money. And it's easy to get hoodwinked and suddenly end up with a wrong person or entity in place. And then once they're in place, how do you get them out once you find out that they're a lemon, you know? So anyway, those are my concerns.
Absolutely. And
Director Balin has a question too for you.
Yeah, I just wanted to follow up on Director Raymond's comments for the Sonora Regional wastewater treatment plant. Help me remember what firm Ed Pattison hired to do some kind of preliminary study. Eric, you may recall. I can't remember who the outfit was to really.
We
Make sure.
originally hired Stan Tech to do some preliminary work, and then PACE, Pacific Advanced Civil Engineering, is who Ed had a previous relationship with, and they did the rest of the planning and the final design.
Okay, so they did the rest of the planning and the final design.
Yes.
And correct me if I'm wrong, I thought that there was some collaborative aspect to us getting the product that we wanted.
There was some collaboration between staff and the engineer. There could have been more, but there was. There just wasn't the collaboration between Kiewit, our contractor, and the designer. And so that opens up all the issues that Gadiel has kind of cited, including when you don't have a contract with the design build team, they do this. It's the designer's fault, or it's the contractor's fault, or, you know, there's ambiguities in plans and specifications. So there wasn't collaboration with PACE and Kiewit because we didn't know who our contractor was going to be until after we bid the job.
Okay, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but what, you know, we're looking at is how do we build in those, it's kind of like insurance, you know, the collaborative insurance up front, so that these things do not come back to bite all of us and end up costing more money anyway. So we're looking at, it may not save anything really, but at least we're shifting resources to getting the product that we want for the long run, for the greater good. I mean, that may be the only thing we get out of this, seriously. We may not see any time savings. We don't know. Depends on the complexity, but I'm just glad to see that you guys are looking at Paradise and other areas that, as we have, because they are retooling like crazy. They're not doing business as usual anymore. They're really looking at the whole watershed aspect of this, including burning later on. And I think that those are the complexities and the nuance. It's not just linear thinking anymore on these things. So anyway, I know you mentioned CSDA, but I think sometimes you go to the people that have built the mousetrap and you pick their brains as well. So, okay. So anyway, I guess I thought that our regional treatment plant was a little more collaborative. That's it. Okay.
Director Boatright has a question.
Gadiel, since we're using Sierra Pines as an example of this progression in designing and building, have we started an objectives list as far as the specifications for the treatment capacities of that water treatment plant?
Yes, absolutely, with not only treatment capacity, but water quality, influent and effluent standards. We have a preliminary design report that really helps us begin to lay that out. And then if and when we bring on an owner advisor to help us, we're going to further develop those standards. So that way, everything is included.
Okay, so, in putting a list together for the objectives and specifications, we have to initialize, type of treatment that we want, projected cost, life cycle of the, treatment infrastructure. How do we go about, do we go for funding off of prospective designs that we're looking at before we go to design? How does funding fit in as far as getting low interest loans and grants? Where does that come in during this process?
Yeah. So we have our preliminary design report that includes a cost estimate. Very preliminary, high level, sort of a plan level more than anything, right? That's what we based our funding on. And as you're aware, the state has sent us a letter telling us that they're going to give us that amount of funding. Basically, it's 40.
It's 45, but
45
just
million.
backing up real quick, just to be clear. So we started at 32 million based on the preliminary design report. Then we adjusted it and actually spoke with contractors to get a peer review, and it jumped up to 46 million, which is what the state has issued a letter indicating they intend to fund. Until we see it, we don't know. But so it has gone up from 32 to 46. And that cost estimate is our budget, which is going back to Director Ringen's question, is like, well, how do you control? Well, we set the budget. This board sets the budget for the project. And through the design build process, the first step is they build a cost model. And then we just look at that cost. We see it tabulated as it's going up. And if there's a problem, then we have the opportunity to intervene and change scope or change the doors or change the doorknobs, because we're educated with the information, we're armed with the information to make those value judgments. The conventional process, the designer says this is the best thing, and we may or may not agree, but we don't know really how much it costs. And so that's how we control costs with the design build method, is that we're looking at the ledger every step of the way and making sure that we're not veering off of our budget. And we do think that the budget's realistic. We've had 2 contractors opine on it, and we had our designer, our Carollo engineers also look at it. So, but there's inflation. So that's another thing, is that the quicker that we can move, the more we can also control inflationary pressures on that project.
Okay, on the bid day, as far as when the proposals are open, how much of the design is the design builder required to have, for the district to look at?
Yeah. One of the great things about doing it progressive design build is that we have flexibility to write that contract in multiple different ways. Some people say, well, design build team, you give us a 60% design, and then we're going to lock in your price. Everybody knows what we're going to do, and everybody knows how much money they're getting. Really shouldn't be any change orders because you guys said that this was it, right? Another option is to take it to 90% design. Supposedly that will be less risk for the contractor, and it'll be more, so you might get a better price if you wait for later in the design. So there's flexibility there.
Not sure.
Was I not clear? I can
Well,
reiterate
I
if you'd
was
like.
just, so it's basically how we put out, the request for proposals on a design build project, whether we want to see 30%, 50%, 90% plans of how the, contractor designer are going to complete the project.
Yeah, and I think one of the missing things that we haven't explained maybe is that when the board chooses the design build team, it's not choosing them based on a cost. I know it's a hard thing it's based on qualifications. It's based on their past experience, their references, and all of those things. So the first thing that the design build team does is build a cost model, validates the budget, starts on the design process. And then as we get to where Gadiel's saying close to 60%, we can say, how much is it going to cost to do the whole project? Maybe we like that dollar, maybe that dollar amount, it's in our budget. Maybe we choose to go forward. Maybe we say, hey, I can see in your cost that you've baked in a contingency of $3 or $4 million, because between 60% and 90% design, there's some questions that still need to be answered. There's some uncertainties, there's some risk there. We would like to take it to 90% because we feel that we can answer those questions, mitigate those risks, and bring the overall cost down. So the key thing here is we choose a design build team not based on cost, but on qualifications. There are off ramps. So if we really don't like the direction that it's going, you haven't executed a contract with a design build team for a $46 million project. You've executed one for a 60% design or a 90% design, something like that. And we take the design at 60%. If we're not happy, doesn't happen often, but if we're not happy, that off ramps in the contract. You can terminate the contract, take the 60% design, finish it with some other consultant, and then you could even bid it like conventionally, or you could pivot to another design build team. So those are all the flexibilities built into it, but I just want to make sure everybody knows that we'll have a budget for the project, but we won't have a final cost until 60 to 90%.
Okay, will we have a cost estimate on how much it costs to get to that off ramp?
Yes.
So we would know, okay, this could potentially cost us, $2 to $5 million of a $42 million contract or project to take that off ramp.
Yes. Yeah, with each step of the way, there'll be a number associated with each step. So we're not completely blind.
Board involvement on each of the projects. Is the board involvement expected to be, okay, we'd like to propose Sierra Pines go through this type of, procedure versus the old design fund bid construct?
I think that the board has a number of decisions going and can be as involved as needed, really. We don't have a prescribed vision for how because this will be our first time, but certainly selecting the design build team, certainly reviewing budgets at each step along the way, making decisions about with the owner advisor helping us along, with what you think a reasonable contingency to carry is. Do you want the contractor to take the risks for, rock or groundwater on the site, or does the district want to do that? If there's cost savings, do we want to share those? Those are all negotiable items that the board could weigh in on. But the key thing is hiring the right team. That's the key thing. If you get the right people, we really feel like the process will work itself out if you get a reputable firm. And we know with conventional design bid build, well, we know what that's like. We usually get a good contractor, but not always.
All right, thank you.
Director Ringen's got a question, but before that, just to tag along to what Director Boatwright was saying there. And reading through this, when I was reading through this agenda before the meeting, just because if we were to agree with this and pass this, It doesn't mean we have to do this every single time. It's just another tool in our tool belt, correct? I mean, if we felt that it was, or if staff felt that it was beneficial to do it the old DBB way, we could do it. We could certainly do that. It's just that this is another tool at our disposal, correct?
That's exactly right. And we're only really considering it for Sierra Pines at this point. I think that the projects have to be state law, Jesse's on. I think they have to be over $5 million.
Okay.
And most of our projects are not that big.
Director Ringen, I'm sorry.
Okay, so with the Sonora Regional Wastewater Plant rebuild or new construction, I think we were kind of lucky to have ended up with Kiewit as a contractor, and very lucky to have our in-house engineer be the person that was overseeing it, because she's just done a fantastic job. Things on time and everything else. But where I'm going with this is, compared to Sierra Pines, is that the regional plant has redundancy and it's got built-in capabilities for years and years into the future, no matter what the population increase may be or not be here in Tuolumne County. It's going to be able to do the job for decades. What I'm really interested in when it comes to this new construction of Sierra Pines, that's going to be just as huge a project as the regional wastewater plant was, if not bigger. And it's going to have the same amount of need for advanced thinking. And I'm wondering how much of that advanced thinking is going into the actual initial design build project for Sierra Pines. In other words, it's going to be the shining thing on the top of the hill that's going to, at some point in time, allow water to flow by gravity down to numerous other areas. Has all of that been, will all of that be relayed to the advisor and the design builder, so that this is already built in, baked into the plans for the new water treatment plant, so that we're not redoing things and remodeling and you know, the stuff that's gone on in this county for years. It'd be nice to break that mold and do it right the first time, and then have it just be where you're attaching pipes to the pipes that are already there, and the thing works perfect.
Director Ringen, if I might, this is an opportunity that I'd like to reiterate once again over the years. You know, Director Balin recalled having some sort of a collaboration amongst groups. The biggest collaboration that I recall having, and Director Boatwright was the chief plant operator at the time, is having the collaboration between operations staff and the designer, right? One of the things that Director Boatwright was famous for saying, and he's 100% right, the engineer comes in, he's here for a couple of years. The contractor's in here, he's for a couple of years, and they all leave, and we're here every day from that day forward. So with that in mind, the operations staff had a lot, talking about Sonora regional wastewater treatment. For that reason, for those comments, our staff, including Director Boatwright, were very instrumental in the design, the redundancy, and the quality of the equipment and the way it was to be operated for or simplicity. You know, routines are very important and they're very monotonous, they're very tedious. Therefore, they need to be simple and easy so that you make sure they get done. So in the design of the regional treatment plant, there's an awful lot of that thinking that went on with people like Director Boatwright, myself, and other wastewater treatment staff with collectively 90+ years of experience that went into that design. And that's the reason that happened. Now, with the water side, a very similar thing happened many years ago. I can't remember if it coincided with the design of the regional plant or if it was before the design of the regional plant when we brought on Corollo. We very much in the same way involved staff. Trevor Cowden, the water treatment superintendent, his foreman at the time, myself, engineering department, and others to talk about these things. What is important to us? One of the things that we've learned living up here in the mountains in the WUI, it's difficult. It's not the same as the treatment plant being built in San Diego or Arizona or Sacramento. We have some real challenges that most people don't deal with. But because of all this experience, we know what we want when it comes to the basic pieces of infrastructure, right? The basic pieces of equipment. We don't want the latest and greatest shiny new thing that works in San Diego. We want the tried and true equipment that will work here because we know it. So anyway, a lot of that work has already been done to get to a preliminary design of 30%. And it's going to be very important, right? I don't know how many years it's going to take, but we cannot lose sight of that information that we've already inputted. We need to have continuity here of this thought moving forward as the years progress. We just don't want to miss out and slide back and oops, well, maybe that's what that person was talking about a few years ago. So anyway, appreciate your comments, but that's my remarks.
Okay, thank you.
I was able to,
Did you have a question, Glenn?
I did. Yes, thank you. So just to echo what Director Ringen mentioned earlier, if you could go back to the previous slide. The advisor role is absolutely crucial.
absolutely.
Absolutely crucial. So we want to take extra pains to make sure we have the best possible mind or minds and utilize the best practices in that the person that fulfills that role. And the other thought I had was Sierra Pines project is a pretty heavy lift for doing something for the first time. And I would hope we can find opportunities to utilize this process to gain experience, kind of get up to speed. The 5 million threshold, how is that a hard and fast thing, or is there some flexibility there?
I can't see if Jesse's online, but I believe the Senate bill, is he? Okay. Jesse, if you want to chime in, but oh, he does. He has his hand raised.
It's a hard number, Director Jacobs. It's a hard number. It's in the legislation, so there's no flexibility there. This particular project, the Sierra Pines, is going to be one of the very few projects, at least under current legislation, that TUD will be able to implement if it chooses to this particular design build process. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks.
Hey, Gaddy. Oh, excuse me. Go ahead, Barbara.
Okay,
Mhm.
we'll let you finish.
No problem.
Yeah, I agree with President Kearns about having the flexibility to have this as one of our tools. Just like if we just want to do all force account on something, we've got that flexibility. So we've got more than just this design build and the design bid build. We've got force account come in and do something based on what Don said, which is we know the tried and true infrastructure. We know how we need to enter a piece of property during the snow. We know that gravity flows downhill. We know these things, okay? But at the same time, I see what we are doing is enlarging our linear thinking to more collaborative, more nuanced thinking, more running it back and forth and moving goalposts. And it does require a lot of people's imaginations being engaged and thinking things through to the long run. And that's where board input is important, because let's take Sierra Pines. Staff knows what kind of safety features they want on the facility. That's great. Okay. So if you go to a design builder and you talk about that, that's great. But the board wants, let's say, some integrated direction with recreation and wildlife protection integrated into that community up there. That is the entrance to a very rural and proud community that prides themselves on their forests and their trees. We want to integrate. We're so visible there, and the recreation component is not just an afterthought if we have leftover money. So it's really going to require all of us to open up our thinking. I know I'm glad to see you guys are excited. I kind of thought we were already doing this, but it's not. But because I do this, this is, you know, to me, a comfort zone, which is really that nuanced thing. What I am concerned about is going back to Eric, what you said, the board has off ramps. Okay, so if we design something with somebody, we build that relationship, we invest in those people, they know they may not get the contract for the next step. So they're not building in any fins and, you know, Cadillac stuff. So, but the board can feel pressure. This is where the board can feel pressure from staff, because you guys have built a relationship with a group. Now we come to a juncture and it's easy for staff to go, well, we've already got this relationship with these people. And then that makes it, I'm just pointing out the dynamic that we have to deal with here. It's not we just need the advisor as a, you know, neutral person to be able to help us make a decision that is not going a direction that somebody may want it to go because they've already built this relationship. You know, we need to have that built into this collaborative process all the way to the board meeting, which is, maybe it doesn't matter if we have this relationship, but we may not want them. They're good at that, but they may not be, you know, here's where they don't get the high score in this. And I'm just telling you, what's hard for us is to hear from you, well, we got this relationship. We don't really, you know, that's just kind of, I'm just looking at heading off what makes our work hard. I don't mean to make you uncomfortable, because all this is just human nature. And that's what we're getting into, really,
Yeah.
is the human is developing relationships. That's
And
what we're talking about.
I totally acknowledge that difficulty. The success of a project like this depends on having that relationship, but it's a double-edged sword. So you have that investment you've made long-term, the inertia's there. It's really hard to separate from a family member. It's hard. And yet that decision is a difficult one for the board. So I totally acknowledge that. The advisor would be that sort of, I don't want to say impartial, because they work for the district, but they should be the clear viewed, objective thinker in terms of the performance of the design build team, despite the relationships that we've developed. But we do need to develop the trusting relationship at the same time. So it is a difficult one and a role for the board to play in that. But like you said, those off ramps are there. So we review the performance, we review the deliverables, we review the budget and how well are they working with operations staff, and there's the opportunity to truncate and terminate that contract and move on to a different method or a different team if we needed to.
Arm's length, I think
It's good.
that advisor has to be arm's length, and just like you said, it's tough to separate from family sometimes, and you need that neutral, not really a neutral third party, but that third person to stand back and look at the whole picture. Director Boatright?
Yeah, specifically to a water treatment plant, consideration towards this, just a recommendation, the data on our source water. As far as the minimums, maximums, the expectation, the years of repeated flows, storm impacts,
Fire impact.
you know, kind of be put in there somewhere as well too. But do we have a opportunity in and along here, to look at the better mousetrap, as just a general, contractor comes in and goes, hey, here's the specifications on your water. This would be a better way to, treat it, to look at it, which may be different than what our original type, specifications as far as a sedimentation, filtration, treatment process was. Certainly want to make sure that we're looking out there for new technologies and new applications, for treatment.
Yeah, that's actually a strength of the progressive design build as well. So we have a great foundation, like Don pointed out, of this report that staff was recently involved with coming up with. But we're going to go to a new team and we're going to say, this is what we have. This is what we like. Hey, what do you have? What do you suggest? And in a collaborative way, though, because the water treatment operators, including Don, will be in that room and looking at this new technology and making the decisions together with cost feedback in real time as well. So it's a strength of this progressive design build.
I could just, a couple things, just again, when we worked with Corollo, however many years ago, they did ask for many, many years of water quality analysis. And of course, we do our annual GPIO on our source water, both the surface water and groundwaters. So we're able to give them, decades worth of water quality analysis. On the, we're gonna stay open-minded and for sure when it comes to entertaining the ideas of other newer technologies. But going back to that particular time, which I think is about 7 or 8 years ago, membrane filtration. I'm sorry if I'm gonna bore you here, but membrane filtration is a relatively new. It's been around for 20 years or so. New technology that is people with a lot of money who rushed out and did, and now they're. I haven't been out now in a few years looking at some of these water treatment plants, but that's not proving to be the most fiscally responsible way to go. Yes, it works, but it's a big O&M expense to maintain those microfiltration membrane type filtration plants. So anyway, just a thought, but we'll keep open mind.
Yeah, certainly. And, that leads back into the life cycle operational costs, that have to be looked at as well.
All right, Gadiel, go ahead.
All right.
Take us home.
We'll continue. Yeah, this has been a great conversation. We've been talking about pros and cons of progressive design build, right? I'm glad to hear from you guys your concerns and I'm glad to be able to talk about the pros and cons of this. So one of the pros, collaborative culture with a project first mindset. That's really, actually, we talked to a lot of people that have been doing this, and that's been the thing that stands out to us the most. I mean, walking with the contractor and an owner around the Stanislaus water treatment plant, just going, man, I forgot who even the contractor and the owner are because they're such a team and they're cohesive in the way that the whole thing came about. More accurate cost prediction. So again, that real-time feedback from a contractor who actually has a price from his supplier is just the best way to foresee your costs coming. Faster delivery is another potential pro. Early equipment procurement. So we all know some of the equipment that we've had to procure for the wastewater treatment plant. It's had 52-week lead times. Okay, it's possible to make those decisions pretty early in design sometimes. Well, we don't know exactly where this electrical panel is going and how to hook it up, but we know we need it. Let's order it. Early works packages is another great pro for progressive design build. For example, we need a raw water pond up at Sierra Pines. We don't need to know what color the building is. We don't even need to know what type of the building is. We just need the pond. Start digging. Okay, that's one really huge advantage of that. And the best one, there can't be a big day surprise. You have in real-time feedback and your cost and your estimate is developed in a collaborative manner with the budget. Everybody knows what the budget is. So there won't be a bid day surprise. I'm not saying that there's not going to be any surprises. I'm going to say that there will be no bid day surprise. Some of the pitfalls or holes like Director Ringen was pointing out earlier. there's pros and cons to any approach. It's new to us. We are very carefully and very meticulously researching and talking to dozens, if not hundreds of people about this, trying to learn from them and go into this with our eyes wide open. We need expert help. Like we discussed, the owner advisor is absolutely essential. We wouldn't try to take this on without the expert advice from somebody like that. Like we talked about before, we're hiring a contractor without knowing the full cost based on qualifications, not based on cost, okay? There are pros and cons to that approach, just like there are pros and cons to the design bid build. There are pitfalls and holes to all of these. The vetting process for selecting a contractor is very intense, very time consuming. We keep on thinking we're trying to estimate when we're going to break down on this, and we keep having to remind ourselves this is going to take some time to put out an RFP, interview people, have confidential conversations with them, putting together a short list, having another RFP go out, okay? A lot of vetting, a lot of reference checking. It's going to be very meticulous over the next, within the first year and a half before you select a contractor, because it's essential to put together that cohesive, collaborative team where everybody gets along, including everything down to personalities, really. I mean, it's important, you know, like Director Balin had already pointed out. So to sum up, we have these new tools for our tool belt. We have these new molds. We can throw out the old molds. We can start to think of things in a more collaborative way, in a more efficient way that, well, in a non-linear way of thinking, like Director Balin's been pointing out. Staff prefers the progressive design build method because we think we'll avoid the bid day surprise problem. We think we can deliver the project faster, and we think that we can have more budget stability throughout the process. So we've had a great conversation up to now, and I'm all for letting this continue with any questions or comments that we have from the board.
Yeah, I've just got a couple comments. Yeah, I like this. I think this is a good way to go. I've never been a fan of the old way, the old DBB. I mean, just to hire somebody simply because they were the cheapest. I never thought that was a real good way. I understood it. I understood why, and I got it. But this gives us a lot more flexibility. What I think it does, though, what I feel it does, is that the old way, the pressure was all on the contractor to come up with a bid that they could live with, and to be able to land the job as well. Now that pressure, in my opinion, is transposed to you as a staff, and then later on to us as the board, because now you guys are deeply involved in this, and that pressure is going to be on you folks to make sure that you come up with a budget and a team that we can all live with and see this project through. And then it's going to go on our shoulders to approve that. So we're transferring pressure is what we're doing here. And I think it's good. And I think it's probably the best way to go to get this project done in the most efficient manner, and to get the product we want at the end of the day. But it doesn't come without consequences, and those are some of them. So I know that myself personally, I'm going to be paying close attention to this, as I'm sure the other four up here will be too, and ratepayers and the community as well. So I know you're not taking this lightly, so I don't have to ask you to do that. But I just want you to know that I believe all the rest of us are not taking it lightly as well. But I like it. I do. I like this. Anybody else? Glenn, Director Jacobs.
Yeah, I'd like to echo what President Kearns had to say. I'm a big fan of design build. Just a thumbnail of my background. I've actually worked as a owner's representative and a project manager for the UC system for a 90-acre facility, doing hundreds of millions of dollars worth of improvement projects. So I've been on the owner side, project management side. I was was a licensed contractor for a number of years. And then based on my contractor's experience, having to put in designs that didn't make sense as a contractor, I'd have to make so many changes. And as a reputable contractor, I ate a lot of the profits because I wanted to get the best job for the client. So my frustration as a contractor led me to move more on the design engineering side. And I found that experience of having actually put the stuff in made me a better designer, so I could anticipate problems. And I learned at early in my design engineering career how important it was to collaborate with the contractors. And then after doing that for some time, I worked actually for decades doing design build projects for public agencies, schools, and counties and other facilities. So I'm a big fan. So thanks.
Director Balin.
Yeah, I'm a big fan. And if we all look at this picture here behind the any questions, when I look at that photo of that job site, what business as usual is, okay, what's the cheapest thing to do? How do we clear cut it, which is cheaper than cherry picking? I can tell you that. Cherry picking drives up the cost. Clear cutting is very efficient. But what do we want this to look like afterwards? So what I think we're talking about is actually, integrated resource management, where we're integrating the design into the terrain. And we're looking at our historic features, our water features, where do we put the plant, what makes sense, and in a much more integrated approach. And I actually see that there's more opportunity for the board to say to give the strategic direction that says, yes, we want these kinds of teams to look at what we can do now, progressive, but it's also adaptive management. But it's done in the field rather than way back where change orders cost. So the more we look at using this environment and how to complement it and get our needs met, is what I get excited about, because actually boards can influence the process based on what we would like to see for something like this. And that's where I think this integrated management strategy and adaptive management progressive is a great idea. It involves everybody.
Any other comments from the board? Okay, we'll open up to public comment. Anybody here in attendance would like to speak on this? Seeing none, how about on the internet there, Corey? Okay, bring it back to the board then.
I think this is informational.
Oh yeah, it is. I'm sorry. I apologize. I was thinking of the next item, but yeah.
Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you, Gadiel. Great presentation.
Excellent.
And appreciated you guys taking the time to answer our questions and because we had a lot of them. That's good. Thank you. Okay, next item, I believe Director Jacobs, you're going to recuse yourself on this one?
Yes.
Okay.
After Melissa.
Actually,
tells us what
before,
it is.
you want to do it before she reads it.
Oh, okay. So
Jesse has his hand up for comment.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Jesse.
Okay, yeah, so I spoke to Director Jacobs earlier today, and we need to identify not just that he has a conflict, what the conflict is. There is a parcel of property under this project that is owned by his daughter, and so he's recusing himself because of that family relationship. Thank you.
thank you. I'll be back.
Thank you, Director Jacobs. Okay, Melissa, next item, please.
Okay, item number 4, consider adopting a resolution authorizing the general manager to submit a financial assistance application to the State Water Resources Control Board for the water main extensions to serve ditch domestics project.
Okay, Eric, I believe this is your item.
It is an action item. We're asking the board, as described here, to pass a resolution authorizing the GM to submit a funding application. This project, as we've scoped it, identified it, would extend water mains in 11 different locations to serve as many as 23 properties that are currently ditch domestic users. And just to recap, ditch domestics are kind of a relic of the past. Before TUD was even in existence, folks had been receiving ditch water and using it in their home. And when the state found out about this, obviously it doesn't meet public health standards. They issued a compliance agreement in 2002 between TUD and, at the time, it was the Department of Health Services, DHS, for the state of California, that basically said, we're going to let you continue to have these ditch domestics. We're not going to force them to drill a well or connect to treated water, but they must demonstrate that they receive 15 gallons of bottled water per quarter, 5 gallons a month. It's certainly not enough for someone to really live off of, but it was just the compromise that was reached at the time. The agreement also said, if it becomes feasible, financially, economically feasible, I'm paraphrasing, to connect to treated water, they should do so at the time that the property sells. Well, generally speaking, it just isn't cost effective or economically feasible for people to fund water main extensions. So we've gone through we have about 130 of these. We've gone through and kind of did a quick look at all of the ditch domestics. They're scattered throughout our system. And we've identified essentially 23 where I think, or we think, a grant could be received to extend treated water. I mean, some of these are miles away, and we just eliminated those right out of hand. But these 23, we've reached out to them just to see if they would be interested. The grant would fund all of the public side costs and the private side costs, but there is a possibility that depending on income, the grant could be reduced, and then we won't know that for some time. But if it is, then we would go back to those property owners and tell them, hey, here's the balance that would need to be funded from you folks in order to make the project happen. It'll be a case-by-case basis. We are not proposing using any district funds for these projects. We're just asking the board to authorize submission of the funding agreement. So happy to answer any questions you may have.
Yeah, I've got a question, and I don't, not taking sides on this question, so I'm honestly curious. So will there be hookup fees charged for these customers?
The
Connection fees?
Yeah, so no, there would not be connection fees. There's a $750 fee that would be covered by the grant, but not a connection fee. In the past, when ditch domestics want to connect, there's two things: that we don't charge them capacity fees if they connect, and we don't require them to get rid of their ditch account. So every person here has the ability to keep their ditch service, use it for irrigation around the home. But what comes into the internal plumbing of the home absolutely cannot be ditch water. So it has to be separated and disconnected. And we would need to verify that there's chlorine residual at all the fixtures in the house. There'd be a bit of work there. But yes, the grant would fund the $750 fee.
Yeah, and it's been a couple of days since I read this, but so they'd be required to have a cross-connection control device as well, too?
Correct.
Yeah, okay. All right, that's it. Director Ringen.
So my question is, out of all the ditch customers, how were these that are involved in this Agenda 4 identified, and after they were identified, I don't know the right word, but how eager were they to get hooked up to treated water? Yeah, and that's my questions.
Identified, we did our own internal screening, just mostly based on distance. That was the biggest driver. If they were just too far away from our current water mains, it was going to be really too expensive, even on the grant side. So that's how we did the initial screening, and you have maps in the agenda package there. And then as far as how receptive they were, Antonio has made phone calls to these folks. And generally speaking, when you tell someone, hey, there's a potential to get 100% grant, you don't have to give up your ditch service. You will have to put a backflow device in and pay a treated water bill, but understand that it's difficult to sell a property that doesn't have treated water. I can't speak for Antonio, but when I checked in with him yesterday, he was getting very favorable responses. Now, some folks are still reluctant about having two water bills. So we won't really know until we submit. If you authorize it, we submit a funding application, we come back, is it 100% grant or is it 80% grant? If it's, let's say 80%, then we have to go back to those folks and recalibrate their expectations and say, hey, you might have to come up with $2,000 or something to make this connection, but it's cheaper than drilling a well, and it solves an issue that maybe they don't foresee right now, but in the long run, if they ever want to sell their property, it will be an issue.
So they were made fully aware that they were going to have to put in a backflow device and have to have it tested yearly.
The grant would pay for the backflow device too, but it wouldn't pay for the annual testing.
Okay, thanks.
Director Balin?
Okay. So I'm a little disappointed that this didn't go through the ditch committee first, because I do think it is a larger, more integrated discussion. Because while we are looking around to figure out where to put folks on, get them treated water, which is a good thing. I have no problem with that. I think in a whole watershed approach, how do we get concurrently, the other question is, how do we get folks that just don't have any other option for outdoor use of water and have to use treated water? Where is a group of folks that we've identified that we can get them off treated water? Let's say they have an acre and they're near the ditch. So when I look at the whole picture, and I think the ditch committee could have brought this out, is let's look at an integrated approach. Let's look at, okay, we can give these people now a choice, but let's see if we can give this group now a choice too and save on treated water for the outdoor use. So when I look at where I want TUD to go in our thinking, I'd like to see, some kind of environmental journeyman level staff compliance person that can integrate that kind of thinking with the engineering thinking, which is great thinking, but to come up with a more watershed approach to our water. And at the same time, I'd like to see if we're concerned about water quality, and you can just go out and look at Sonora Creek running right through Sonora right now, and that's brown. You can go look at Mormon Creek and that is clear. You can see the crawdads. And so it bodes a larger question for TUD to integrate better management of people's land, and there's an enforcement and have policies that can support that as we go around so that this water doesn't continue to deteriorate. So I look at this as just one small component. Yeah, it's good to get people on some treated water. That's good. It's good we're keeping, they can raw water for fire protection, et cetera. But that's only one component if you're looking at the whole picture of water quality and saving treated water where people can get off treated water for outdoor use. So until I see that kind of package, I would like this to go back to ditch committee for a more integrated discussion.
And I'll just say, the grant program we're targeting is to provide treated water to folks. I think the integrated approach that you're describing may not fit into this particular grant program, not saying it wouldn't fit into others, but it talks about water quality. It talks about water savings. It talks about offsetting treated water use with ditch water. All great. And those could go to the ditch committee and those could be the subject of another grant. But this grant for public health concerns and issues is going to be specific to ditch domestics and getting them connected to treated water. So I don't want to say that we can't also do what you're describing, but these are very specifically focused on treated water extension where we may want to pipe the ditch. When I say pipe the ditch, extend the ditch in a pipe to where we can distribute water under pressure to more people. That's really a different analysis in terms of this project.
Director Boatright.
I think I just figured out a conflict for me to be in on this, but I didn't realize.
One of the project sites.
Yeah, the one down Mount Brow puts my property within 500 feet of this project, and I think I should recuse myself.
Okay.
From this, sorry for not having knowledge of that sooner.
Jesse has a stand up.
Go ahead, Jesse.
You're muted, Jesse.
I was just going to agree that if he's that close to his property, then he should recuse as well. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, David. Our group is shrinking. Okay. Any other questions? Director Rangan, do you have a question or anything?
No.
Okay. Anything else, Barbara? Okay, we'll bring it to public comment then. Anybody here? Okay, how about on the internet there, Corey?
Not at the moment.
Okay, then I'll bring it back to the board. We have
Well, I'll reluctantly make a motion to adopt the authorizing execution and installment purchase agreement of the delivery certificates of participation for financing. Wait a minute, I'm on the wrong one here.
We're on
Four.
Number
one
4.
up above. Yeah.
Yeah. Resolution authorizing general manager to submit a financial assistance application to the State Water Resources Control Board for the water main extensions to serve ditch domestics project.
Okay.
Period.
I'll second that. I understand Director Balin's issues with going through the ditch committee. However, this is just like you said, Eric, I'm gonna make sure I'm clear on this, that this is just to not eliminate, but to allow ditch domestics to get treated water, not having to give away their ditch connection if they so choose. And that's what falls under this particular grant, correct?
Correct.
Okay. All right, so I seconded that. Is there any further discussion? Director Balin, do you have any more comments?
No.
Okay. How about you, Director Rangan?
No.
Any other further public comment? None here, none on the internet. Okay, then I'll call for the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Abstain.
Abstain. Okay, well then it fails because of only 2 votes for. Okay. All right, moving on. Geddio, would you mind, please, could I ask a favor of you to bring Director Jacobs back in, please? Thank you.
Correct.
Yeah, and boat right too, yes.
Sorry.
No, it's your fault.
See, Director Boatright's back. Did you locate Director Jacobs?
Yeah, I let him know.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Melissa, would you like to read the next item, please?
Okay, item number 5, board to consider authorizing execution of installment purchase agreement and the delivery of certificates of participation for the financing of the Sonora Regional Wastewater Treatment Facility project.
Okay, our new Finance Director, Carolyn Higgins, is up to bat.
Good morning. So I guess this one's me. First, I just want to apologize in advance. I think the number of attachments and the length of them that were in your packet were more than maybe what you've seen in history. So I apologize for that. It's just how these legalese documents go sometimes. So I just wanted to provide a very broad overview of what this is. And essentially, I think that you've been a part of the process all along the way. I'm somewhat new to it, so I apologize in advance, but basically what this item is doing, there's 2 resolutions that would need to be approved in order for this to go through. But essentially the background of it is that there was a loan grant package awarded that, as you all know, by USDA for completion of the regional wastewater treatment facility. And there was 3 components to that: our own funds, loan funds from USDA, and grant funds. And they were to be spent in that order. USDA at the time stipulated that the loan funds wouldn't be dispersed until substantial completion of the project happened. And in the meantime, we would have to secure interim financing for the project, which happened in 2021. And it was scheduled to be paid off in August of 2024. The good news is that the project reached substantial completion before August 2024. So we are eligible to prepay that interim financing. And if that is done, and we're asking for it to close on February 15th, that's why I need to be brought to this board meeting. If we're able to close on February 15th, it will actually save about $155,000 in interest funds that would have been paid for that interim financing. And the savings from that can be applied to other costs of the project. So that's kind of the big picture overview of what this is. And to accomplish it, you have to pass 2 resolutions. One was prepared by bond counsel, and they are online if we have questions for them. But in very, very broadly, what that resolution does is that it approves the installment purchase agreement and the assignment agreement. It acknowledges that the closing costs are visible. It stipulates who can sign the installment sales agreement and any future documents that will be needed to complete the close of the loan on February 15th on behalf of the district. So that's the first one that was written by bond counsel. The second one is just a form resolution that's required by USDA, and it authorizes and provides for the incurrence of the indebtedness, basically authorizes their loan. That's the long-term financing for this project. So the result of it is that the USDA will release the $24,879,000 to pay off the interim financing, and we'll begin our 40 years of payments. It's a 40-year long-term loan with 3 different certificates of participation. The interest rates on those are 1.125% and 1.375%. So that's basically the broad picture of what this is. And that's kind of it. So I don't know if you have any questions related to it. Lots of specific legalese is in there. So I do have bond counsel online if there's any questions regarding that.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for Finance Director Higgins? Director Rankin.
I don't have any questions, but this sounds like a win-win. So I fully support it.
Anybody else? I think we probably all agree with that, so. Okay, any public comment? Okay, all right, then I'll bring it back to the board. Remember, there's 2 resolutions.
Oh,
ahead.
two.
Go ahead, Director Rain.
I don't see the second one, but I'll do my best here. I make a motion to authorize execution of installment purchase agreement and the delivery of certificates of participation for the financing of the Sonora Regional Wastewater Treatment Facility project. We'll pull somewhere in there.
Okay, will that do it? Melissa?
The resolution numbers are 524 and 620.
Thank you very much.
I'll second that.
Okay. All right, so it's been moved and seconded to approve this item with both resolutions. Is there any other further board comment? How about public comment? Anything public comment? Corey? Okay, we'll bring it back for the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0. Thank you, Carolyn. Okay, before the next item's read, it's my turn to recuse myself, so I will head next door and Director Ringen, you've got control.
Okay. Hurry back.
Dang it. Could Director Kearns identify the conflict, please?
Yeah. Yes, thank you for reminding me, Jesse. Yes, my firm has done work for, and continues to do work for the Tuolumne Band of Miwok Indians. That's why I'm recusing. Thank you.
Okay, Melissa, please.
Okay, item number 6, agreement regarding construction and transfer of water storage tank to serve the Tuolumne Rancheria and portions of the Ponderosa System, Tuolumne Band of Miwok Indians.
All right, good morning, everyone. This is Antonio Ramirez with the Engineering Department here at TUD. The item I have before you today is a standard developer agreement for construction of a 400,000 gallon water storage tank on the Tuolumne Rancheria. The tribe had, well, okay, so standard developer agreements contain conditions for which the tank will be constructed, that basically that it'll be constructed to our standards and specifications under inspection. And that when the project is completed, that this tank would be taken over by the district for operation and maintenance. The district currently serves the tribe, the Tuolumne Rancheria from the Ponderosa Water Treatment Plant and through various water lines through the Ponderosa subdivision. A lot of those pipelines are smaller in diameter. The tribe has sought a grant and obtained a grant to construct a tank to improve the fire flow on the reservation, and also would also buffer them for any, if there are any water main breaks in the Ponderosa system upstream of them, they would be basically kept in water during that time. So again, the project is just to improve their fire flow and their water supply reliability. This project actually will benefit the district because we serve about 1/3 of the Ponderosa customers through the reservation. So our water lines go from the Ponderosa system through the Ponderosa subdivision, through the reservation, and then across Tuolumne Road North. So it's benefiting at least about 1/3 of our customers in this system. Again, the same thing will result improved fire flow for them and reliability. They'll be buffered for any water main breaks or any issues that we may have upstream. When the tank is completed, again, it'll be transferred to the district for operation and maintenance. Operations just told me that there are potentially other benefits to having the tank in this location. Potential development. Most of the potential development in the Ponderosa system is going to happen downstream of this tank. So if things do happen, this tank is, as terms of development, this tank would be what would be providing storage for them. There could be other operational things that I'm not entirely aware about that could benefit from this, but operations definitely was supportive of the project. Couple things I want to make clear is that the district is not paying for the tank. The tribe is. We will be offering administrative staff time, engineering staff time, inspection staff time at the expense of the district. When this project's completed, though, because it's on tribal lands, we won't, as we normally would, obtain the land around the tank and that the tank is on and fee title, because you can't do that on tribal lands. There are rules to it. I don't know all the rules, but we definitely can do that. So that won't be happening in this particular case. The plans for this project have been in review and generally have been approved for the tank. So they've been kind of doing sort of parallel paths here. So, you know, I think the last thing I want to say is that there's definitely been a long history in collaborating with the tribe. You know, I think I found about 15, at least about 15 agreements for water main projects, master meter agreements. We've served various developments, and obviously the Tuolumne water treatment plant and that storage tank was by and large constructed by the tribe in kind of a similar manner as this. So definitely just another one of those, you know, milestones, you know, that we're looking for here. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any of the board member? Yes. I do have a question. Good morning, Antonio. The rancheria itself, are the individual residences water customers of the district, or are they served through a master meter?
They are all individual, for the most part, individually metered. There's a couple locations with, I think you have about 82 homes, somewhere below 80s, individual water meters that are serving about the similar number of homes. There's a couple of small master meters up there as well. I think there's only one serving about, I don't know, 10, 12 homes, something like that.
Typically, how long before major maintenance scheduled for the water tank? It's installed new design, meeting our new criteria. What are we looking at as far as?
Well, we dive, clean and inspect on a 5-year.
No, I'm just thinking recoatings.
Recoatings.
As far as do we have any?
Yeah, I mean, ideally, we're probably in the 20-year range. You want to do a recoat on the tank about that time frame. You know, we don't necessarily have a great baseline for that. This is industry standard or standard of practice because it depends on cathodic protection, depends on the water quality, depends on the chlorine, but 20 years is a good.
Okay. Yeah, and all of those things will, you know, basically be taken into design to mitigate that. Now, will this tank also, the project also include all of the standard district monitoring equipment as far as level sensors, telemetry?
It does. And in fact, we're actually transitioning over to Ignition, a different, you know, sort of SCADA system. We used to use a different telemetry system. And so this project will implement, you know, an Ignition type SCADA system, but it will still have all the standard level sensing, flow control, metering, all of that is pretty standard. It also includes external roof rafters. We've talked to the board about this before. We've implemented that along with forced air ventilation as a way to control corrosion in the headspace. So we aren't cutting any corners. This tank is just like a tank we would be building if we were using our own money. However, the tribe does have a grant for this one.
Yeah.
So everything will be on them.
Yeah, it just, you know, from my standpoint, because, you know, as a board member and, you know, in the past, we got to eliminate tanks. Eliminate tanks has always been the mindset. And this, to my understanding, is a brand new tank. So it's gonna add us in the other direction. The future, you know, replacement of this tank is obviously then district responsibility at that future date.
life cycle 80 years, 50 years?
80 years, you'll hear the industry say that, the Steel Tank Association. Again, if this district doesn't maintain its tanks, it won't last that long. So, we dive, clean and inspect, we address the coatings failures, we make sure the cathodic protection system is tuned. Yeah, and it will all be on the ratepayers because it's covered in our rates to maintain this once it's built.
All right, thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. Just a question, I don't recall the specific technology. I just remember some discussion about glass tank lining technology. Could we elaborate a little bit about that?
Glass fused to steel it's a passive glass layer liner for bolted steel tanks. The district is still working on a tank master plan and refining its standards. We've come great strides over the years, but this is yet another technology that we're exploring. We sent a group over to Calaveras County. They have a few tanks that are glass fused to steel. Just spoke with vendors rep yesterday. Yesterday. And they're going to come up and give us a presentation on this. It's not widely used, but it may have a place for us. It usually becomes cost effective, according to the vendors rep, about 1 million gallon size or larger. You pay a premium at this size. This tank's a 400,000. So at this point, this is consistent with our current standards, but our standards are always improving. And after we get a little more information, we may decide to move forward at some point with a glass fused to steel tank. There's a lot of questions we have still. Supply chain, there's only a few manufacturers of these, so you're not going to get a very competitive, you're kind of sole sourcing a tank like that. So those are other issues that we have to take into account. But this tank meets our current standards.
But as far as, life cycle cost, overall maintenance, has it been looked at in this application?
If you ask the people that sell glass fused to steel, it's got no maintenance. But we all know that that's not entirely true. What our folks that went over to Calaveras County saw was a couple tanks that were well past the recoat. They were past what we would normally see as a recoat cycle on a welded steel, and they still looked quite good. But they could only see what they could see, from the hatch and looking in, and they didn't see like what a diver would see inside the tank. So I don't have a great answer to your question, but the industry says that they last a lot longer. I don't know total life cycle, but it's really the recoat. So if every 20 years you're recoating a welded steel tank and you pay a little extra up front for the glass fused to steel, when's your payback period? And they say the payback period's after that first recoat cycle. So 20 years in, you're already ahead with the glass fused to steel. We just have some other questions about all the bolts. That's not the only place a welded or a bolted steel tank fails. It also fails at the seams. It fails at the bolts. We've seen that before. So we'll continue to investigate that. But it might be a few more months before your staff kind of settles on what we think is the recommended approach. And then we'll look for a project, if that's the case, on when it would be suitable and appropriate to use glass fused to steel.
So for this specific project, you don't believe it's the appropriate solution?
Not with the information that we currently have. And I'll tell you, the tribe wants to move forward quick. They have a grant deadline. And so we don't have the luxury. I'm just saying, we don't have the luxury of waiting 6 months to iron all this out. I think I told the board last board meeting, there's 5 tanks that we have in queue right now at various stages. So the hope would be to reach a decision point on the glass fused to steel soon, so that we don't perpetuate doing something that could be done, you know, better through this other approach. But this one, unfortunately, they're ready. Actually, there's a pre-con meeting today out on site because the tribes executed their side and they're expecting, and I know how much you, Director Balin, you don't like this, but we don't control necessarily how quickly the tribe works, but they're ready to start grading the site. And they know that this is coming to the board today.
Thank you.
Yes. Is this a bolted steel tank or a welded tank?
This is a welded tank.
Is glass fused steel available in a welded tank?
No.
Any other questions? Well, I've got a couple of things here. Number one is the infrastructure, the piping going to the and out of the tank. Is that TUD responsibility?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, and the tribe has actually gotten grant funding to replace all that as well.
Okay.
So that's
okay.
all the
But
proper
once
side.
it's replaced, we take it over and we keep it up. Okay.
Mhm.
We don't get the property around the tank because it's on tribal land. But I assume, and this is probably a stupid question, that we are gonna have a written agreement for an easement
Mhm.
to maintain it.
Right, there is currently a document, it's sort of a generalized document that states that the district has effectively an easement to maintain water facilities on the reservation. So there are also other times where we've gotten, they can't grant an easement in the same fashion that, again, you normally would get. And so there usually some sort of memorandum of understanding type letter, maintenance agreement to that effect. So, but there is one that's sort of a generalized document that goes back quite a ways that we could use. So
Does it need to be reviewed?
we could go back and try and get this MO, an updated letter from them when we get the grant deed for the tank.
It's the same format that was previously reviewed on by legal on previous agreements. So it doesn't change in form. We can certainly, have it revisited, but like Antonio said, that the easement is, we're not going to get the conventional form of an easement. So we've already been maintaining, and if you guys may or may not recall, there was already a tank just very close to this location.
Right.
So the district's been operating, maintaining this infrastructure on the rancheria as long as we've been around.
Well, I don't foresee any kind of problem, but it's one that you don't address that comes up to bite you, and that's the only reason why I brought it up. The last thing that I wanted to mention is for Director Boatwright's information. One is that there was a tank there that was no good. So we're not installing a new tank, just be installing a tank, number one. And if I'm correct, the reason is for reliability and fire flow, which they've been sorely lacking. And the fact that it's downstream, the tank in the water system is downstream from Ponderosa, which is not known for its reliability. So having that reliability by having the tank there is the reason why we're putting up a new tank, the biggest reason. Is that not correct?
Yes, everything that you said is correct. And then it adds operational flexibility to the district in the sense that at some point the Tuolumne City Clearwell will need to be removed for maintenance, 20-year time frame, right? So we're coming up in the next, I want to say next 8 years or so, 7 or 8. And we have no other source of storage for that system. So this tank could serve that zone while a maintenance is being done on that tank. So you always need to really have 2 tanks per zone, or you need to have an intertie that allows you to be served through some other source.
Right. Any further questions from the board? Then I'll put it out to
Excuse me,
public.
Director.
Oh, I didn't see you.
It's okay. I'm in favor of approving this, but just for my own background education, information, how does this tie in? There's reference to aging of distribution lines in infrastructure. Help me understand how this fits into what's going on in the region with regard to aging infrastructure improvements.
Can you restate that for me so I can?
Well, specifically the distribution lines going to and from. What condition are they in? How's it fit into the overall picture?
I'll kind of give you a quick response, and then Don, you can tell me if I can hit the mark. So we have a lot of stuff that we inherited. There's quite a bit that's wasn't ideal when it was constructed, and definitely isn't ideal now, for fire flow. And so much of the Ponderosa distribution system, there's a lot of 4-inch, which for fire flow isn't ideal. It creates higher than desired and designed velocities, which just could be problematic in a fire flow condition. What I think is beneficial about this tank is that a good third of the Ponderosa system, if there is a fire downstream, and they utilize hydrants downstream, it's going to really alleviate pressure and issues in the upper portion of the Ponderosa system. So it's definitely beneficial. It's not always easy to just go and replace these 4-inch mains. I don't know where we stand in that. And that's probably a Dawn question. So
Thank you.
Yeah, so everything you said is absolutely correct. But to add insult to injury, in this particular case, the district decided to purchase the Ponderosa water system with all of its challenges. So yeah, the water infrastructure mainline pipes are generally some sort of a plastic pipe, PVC or Bluebell. There's no location, so we don't have a way to locate it. There's no locating wires. So when they break or when we have a problem, it's a challenge to go fix. So that's been ongoing, and it's been over the decades, it's been very disruptive to the reservation, because here we got this leak and we have no way to locate, valves and things of that nature. So it's just been problematic. So the district, the tribe has been on this venture to improve their fire flow for a long, long time, ever since the reservation tank went away in the early 2000s, mid 2000s. So they got real serious about it 5-6 years ago, so much so they went out and got several grants to improve and replace their old infrastructure, pipes in the ground. And they've done that with the proper locating wire, the proper size and type of mains. They've done all that work that helps them, and it also helps us, our operational costs and maintenance. They saw the benefit of that, and again, working with our engineering team, they needed a real big master plan of what they know where they want to go. They just weren't sure how to get there. So they worked very close with Eric and his team on sort of a master plan. And through that, a lot of light bulbs went off, including the need for this tank, how it's mutually benefit. And that the tribe has now decided they're going to invest even more money of their money into the our infrastructure to improve it in and out of the reservation. So at the end of the day, a few years from now, working collaboratively, we're going to improve the water system that benefits them and their fire flow and reliability, and it also benefits TD from a maintenance standpoint and redundancy to the Tuolumne system.
Thank you.
Any more questions from the board? Go. Is there a guarantee on the tank as far as from the contractor, from the installers?
Yeah, there's a warranty. Let's see if I can find this section here. Agreements for. Yeah, there it is. It looks like it says 1 year, Eric. Yeah.
Okay.
What about an agreement with the tribe as such as, you know, potential early failure responsibility? Something unforeseen, is there? Just, you know, for the rest of our ratepayers.
This is this is our standard terms and conditions for these agreements. I don't know if it's really necessary. I mean, the tank's built correctly. If it's gonna fail, it's gonna fail after it's corroded and we had coatings failures and that's 20+ years down the road. Normally we see a 1 or a 2 year warranty. On tanks, the tank manufacturers do a 1 year. And the reason they do that is because what happens is that first year you don't turn on what we call the cathodic protection system, which is an electrical system to protect the coatings. You don't turn that on and you evaluate the coatings for that first year. You go in at the 12-month mark and you may drain the tank or you may do a diver and you inspect how the coatings are doing, because if they had any what they call holidays or little pinholes or anything, they did a poor job with the coatings. The idea is that you're going to start to see after 12 months some coatings failures. And you can catch that during the warranty period and have the contractor come out and do a repair. After the 12 months, you turn the cathodic protection system on. Well, that's supposed to protect the coatings and it would hide any of those defects. So contractors or tank manufacturers usually see that 12-month period as the critical for coatings failures. Now, the steel and all that, while you're building it, it's being inspected. So all the welds are being the weld seams are being x-rayed. The floor is being vacuum tested. When the coatings go on, we have a special coatings inspector on this job, not a district staff, a NACE certified person that comes out. They measure dry film thickness for the coatings. They make sure that the coatings are being applied at the right temperature, the right relative humidity with the right coverage, and that there's a recoat window in between the first coat and the second coat so that, you know, you don't end up getting delamination of the coating. So there's just a whole bunch of stuff that goes in to this that we really have to hire a specialized person to do when it comes to coatings. But the warranty, I just, no, we haven't broached that subject with the tribe, but I also don't think the tank manufacturer would go for an extended warranty. It would have to be the tribe agreeing to some sort of like warranty bond. And what time frame, I don't know, would be protective for the district after 1 year.
Will the district have an inspector on the site as the tank is constructed?
Fortunately, our inspector is a welder by trade. So he will be on site through all of the construction throughout the whole time, but then we'll bring a specialized coatings inspector in when the project transitions from welding to sandblasting and coating.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, any more questions? Okay, then I'll send it out to the public. Any conversation, thoughts, whatever? I see. No, okay, then I'll bring it back to the board.
I'll make a motion. I'd like to have the board approve the agreement with the Tuolumne Band of Miwok Indians and authorize the general manager to execute the agreement regarding the construction and transfer of a water storage tank to serve the Tuolumne Rancheria and portions of the Ponderosa system.
I'll second.
Okay, with that, is there any more discussion? Public or otherwise? Nope. Okay, then I'll bring it back to the board for action. All those in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay, looks like it's a whole 4-0.
Thank you. Great. Could you direct us plans, please?
You don't have to be mad about having to go out. All yours is still intact.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Director Engen. Okay, staff reports. Who wants to go first?
Sure, I'll go first. So first, I'm gonna do a couple things, but the last few weeks been working pretty closely with some of our mountain counties, agencies, Calaveras, Utica, EID and others, alongside with Justin Caparuso, the Executive Director of Mountain County Water Resources Agency. We're trying to re-engage with CARB and explaining to them that our unique challenge with complying with the advanced clean fleet regulations have been passed. So I have some handouts, just kind of, first thing we did is when we approached them last Friday, it was 2 Fridays ago, I guess now, we gave them kind of a one-page summary of what our unique concerns were and thoughts. Justin Caparuso was the point person for us. And so he was able to put that together, working with all of us over several meetings. Then we also collected, and the last one there is for Melissa. We also collected and hand out, so they basically, there's exemptions for all your concerns. There's just exemptions. Just go look at the exemptions. Well, we do look at the exemptions and we realize that the exemptions are problematic again for us. So we sent along, what we felt like were our challenges with our exemption, with the proposed exemption. So at the end of the day, while we didn't make a lot of strides, we feel like we're beginning to open up their eyes a little bit about the unique challenges we have working in the mountainous regions where we live and work, and how remote some of our infrastructure is, how prone they are to every natural disaster that you can think of. And so hopefully over time, so just to be clear, Mountain County's water resources, none of us are completely opposed to cleaning up the air. We all kind of get that. And in time, we know we can get there. It's just that today we feel like to comply with this simply puts our employees at risk and our ability to serve our ratepayers the way they're accustomed to being served, especially in the face of disasters, the way they can today. So that's kind of the nut and bolts of that. The other thing I want to talk about is January 10th. We had our kickoff meeting with Rick Lynn and CBI to talk about our wildfire defense plan. We met in here, and you can see at the last, I'm going to hand out some more pages. More. The last one there. So that was a very productive meeting. It was most of the day. We met in here, had a kind of a working lunch here. I'll just read the participants besides myself were Eric Hall, Abby Parkon, Tony Diaz, Kurt Byers, all of TUD. With Rick Lynn and Nia too. There's Rick Lynn, Rand LaFrance, Jeremy Waits, Summer Abel from EN2, and then from CBI, Deanne, I can't pronounce her last name. I just got her first name pronounced correctly. And Gladwin Joseph from CBI. We had a great internal meeting, good planning session, and then we actually got out in the field, and you can see some of the pictures out in the field. So anyway, more to come on that, but I just want you to know that we had a very productive meeting, and it's exciting. We're engaging with the county to make sure how our two plans will collaborate. So that's all I have. Bless you.
Okay, Eric?
Don wanted me to share real briefly. The board knows we're working with the USBR to secure a long-term water service contract out of New Melones. And we're collaborating with Chicken Ranch Tribe on 6,000 acre feet. We hold monthly meetings with USBR. The district's hired ESA to conduct the environmental and temperature and storage modeling has been done, and the project description has been drafted, and the CEQA and NEPA documents are currently being worked on. So I'll just report back to the board as we move through that process. Hopefully by around June, we'll have a CEQA document to consider. The NEPA document will lag a little bit. It'll be adopted by the U.S. Bureau of Reclamation, and it will be dependent on some of their internal processing times, but we continue to make progress.
Okay, thank you, Eric. Carolyn?
Yes, just wanted to let you know a little bit about what will be upcoming for future board meetings from the finance department. Next board meeting, you'll be receiving a presentation about our quarterly investment report. And then after that, right now, we are working on mid-year budget. So you will expect to see a mid-year budget review presentation, not at that board meeting, but the following.
Thank you. Abby?
Morning, everyone. I am going to give a quick update on our FEMA public assistance. That process that we've been in with FEMA now, it's been a whole year. There were 2 disasters at the end of December of 22 through January of 23. And then February 1st of 23 and ongoing. I think they ended that sometime in April. So disasters 4683 and 4699. Between the 2, the district has currently about 8 projects under each disaster that we're working on. Within the projects, there are over 30 what's called a DI, damage inventory, that we're managing with our FEMA representative. There have been a few hiccups along the way. We are on our 3rd PDMG, which is I had to write it down because I didn't know what it meant, Program Delivery Manager. And we are about to get a 4th PDMG. So because of staff changes and their limits on the number of weeks that they can work on these disasters, I will say that has reduced efficiency quite a bit. And so we had a site visit out at Phoenix Lake, which is the largest damage inventory item that we have under the first disaster of 4683. The site visit or the site inspection was in April of 2023. I'm looking at Danielle because he's the lead engineer on that damage repair and the ongoing project scope of that project. But and we don't have a final site inventory report. Then there was a preliminary report that was entered into the system back in June, but it was kind of dropped on FEMA's side. And so some frustrations there. The new PDMG that we've been working with has picked up the ball, and it's been rolling a little bit faster than it did the previous months. But we feel like we're at least getting on a roll now, and we're cleaning up some of the projects that we had before. What happens when we get a new representative from FEMA is they have a different opinion on the way the project should be lumped together or grouped together, and under which category they should be under, which, kind of dictates the next steps of that project and how to go about it. So with having 3 PDMGs and now about to have a 4th, it's just a very slow process. I know we have a lot of interest in the damages that happened at Phoenix Lake back in January of 2023. And we are working hard. We've got some new information now with this PDMG that we need to have a much more extensive certified engineering report. So Danielle is working on that. He's been instrumental in that and providing that information. And so I just wanted to let you know that that is still a process going. It's going as fast as FEMA allows it. We have provided all of the information and the responses as quickly as possible, and but it is a very slow process. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Director Regan.
So how are we doing with our permits on that project? I know that the damage is something different from the original project, but still, I would imagine that anything that's done on Phoenix Lake has to be under those permits. Are we still good to go for a while?
You want to comment on? Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Hey, Danielle DeBate, Associate Engineer with the district. Yes, some of those permits are still valid, aren't. We need some of them and some of them we don't. We're working with FEMA to get that straightened out and get them all the information they need in order to repair the North Pole.
Okay, and where will we be as far as finishing that project finally?
That depends on FEMA.
No, I don't mean the damage. Talking about the finishing of dredging of Phoenix Lake project, because we only made it we didn't even make it halfway through. So we need the other half plus finished.
I see. Yeah, that's it. I wasn't expecting that question. That is a different project. We applied for funding around the tune of 23 million, I believe, and it was not awarded, correct?
Correct. That
Yeah.
was through hazard mitigation.
What was that?
That was through a hazard mitigation grant,
Oh, okay.
but you're right, it was not approved.
Yeah. This is, and then so the project that Abby's referring to is just repairing the damage.
I understand.
Okay,
I
you got it.
understand.
You got it.
Okay, thank you.
We continue to seek funding on that. Director Ringen, that is right at the top of our list when we look at funding opportunities. But yeah, it will be an expensive project, so we're looking for money for that.
Good, keep it up.
Okay.
That needs to get finished.
Okay.
That concludes
Director
my
Jacobs, you had a question?
Yes, Abby, wonder if you could give us a very quick update on the hazard mitigation plan, the countywide plan?
Sure. So yeah, the last time I presented that item to the board, you all had an opportunity to provide any input that you had on that plan. And so that TUD's final draft, I'll put air quotes around draft, was submitted to the county right before the new year, just between Christmas and New Year, before the deadline of December 29th. We received feedback the middle of last week from the county that said they had 0 edits to our final draft. And so that they were moving forward to their pre-submission to FEMA to see if FEMA had any necessary updates. And then once we hear back from the county on whether or not FEMA had any updates that were required, then we will bring it to the board for final adoption.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, not seeing any further staff here. We'll go ahead and go to the next item, which is director's reports. Let's start down here with Director Boatright.
No reports this time.
Okay, Director Ringen?
Unbelievably, I have none either.
Okay. I don't either. Director Balin?
Yes, I was asked, gosh, it seems so long ago, by the Aronas Club to do a presentation on the ditch system. So I'm working with Abby and I was working with Emily on that, and that's going to be in February. Then on the 25th of this month, I'm working with Justin Caparoso on sort of visioning what our April, we're going to host the Mountain Counties board and other key staff. I know some of the folks from our legislators like to show up. So we want to do a very nice program, and I'm very proud to host that. And Don, I'll keep you apprised of that. But we got to start planning now. April's right, tomorrow. So
Yeah.
as far as I'm concerned, any rate, so that's what I'm going to be doing. And that's all I have to report. Thank you.
Thank you. Director Jacobs?
No reports.
Okay. All right. Anything else for the good of the order? If not,